Hey, what's up, guys? So here is the premise for today. You know, Christmas is coming, and I thought, why not do a list of all changes, and I mean everything I could think of that could make Elden Ring the perfect game. So, you know, usually when we address the From Software, we usually go little by little to not overwhelm them. But what if I had to, you know, just tell them everything that could be changed to make the game better? Well, since Christmas is coming, like, why not? Here's a list of pretty much all the changes I would do to make Elden Ring the perfect game. Most of them are balance changes, of course, because we don't want to change the identity of the game. We just want to you know, balance things for them to be more appropriate. But also, I'll also note some suggestion for various features that I think could be important and could be interesting and appreciated by the players. But I want to break it down to like two parts. So the most important things that I think this game needs, you know, the most important balance changes I could see. And then also, like, I'm going to go over like pretty much nearly all Ash of Wars and weapons as well, to see like what we could do to make them better. I pretty much made a list of nearly everything in the game, and I pretty much looked at everything in the game and I thought to myself, is this in a good place? Does this need a buff, or does this need a nerf? And for the most part, I would say most things actually need a buff, but not like a damage buff. So let's start with the very beginning. The most important change that Elden Ring needs right now is a reduction of roll distance for Light Roll and Bloodhound Step Ash of War. So right now this is the medium roll distance, you know, pretty standard. If we take off the armor, this is the light roll distance, which is a much greater travel distance. Now, we don't want the light roll distance to be the exact same as medium roll, but here's the thing though, there is the same type of issue with Bloodhound Step. So this is the travel length of Bloodhound Step, which is very large as well. And let's put back on the medium armor. So here's the thing, Bloodhound Step has, the first Bloodhound Step goes pretty far, and then if you spam it, the consecutive ones are shorter. But there's still a good travel distance. This is the exact distance I think would be appropriate for all Bloodhound Steps, and as well as light rolls. So I think the Bloodhound Step, the first one, is still a bit too far. Light rolls, still too far as well. But if we take a look at Bloodhound Step, the consecutive one, that's a good distance. If Light Roll and Bloodhound Step could have that distance instead of the full one, I think we would be in a good place. And that medium distance that's consecutive distance for Bloodhound Step on medium load, right? Because we're on the medium load. I don't know if this changed actually on light load for the consecutive one, because I know the first Bloodhound Step when you're on light load travels further, but yeah, the second one also looks like it does. So that would actually be too much as well. So this distance right here is what it should be. It's still a good distance, don't get me wrong, but I think that would be enough to make it so that people can't just, you know, mash circle out of everything like a monkey, because you guys don't want to have to, you know, you guys don't want to mash circle like a monkey to avoid attacks. Like, you want to actually time your attack. You don't want this game to reward mashing like a monkey, do you? I think everyone wants the game to be more like, you know, you need to be more thoughtful in what you're doing in the game, so not reward like randomly mashing one button. I think it would be better if the game rewarded, you know, having to time your dodges instead of just mashing it. So I think that's why this change is just so crucial, because the roll distance and the Bloodhound Step distance just trivializes pretty much nearly everything in the game to a point where there's actually no counter. There's really only a few things that can deal with it, but there's like few and far between. It was pretty much like shields before it got nerfed. You know, there was like a counter to shield. You could have like Enspire Rapier. You know, that was the counter to shield, Enspire Rapier with rock strings before they nerfed shield. You know, that was the way to counter shield. But you know, when you're forced to use that sort of tactics, that means the shield needed a nerf, and we actually got the shield nerf that we wanted for shield poking. I mean, of course. So that's the most important change that the game needs, definitely. You know, I see a lot of not experienced players and players in generally that are not very good, not very experienced, that don't really know what they're talking about, quite frankly, that are against this, people that light roll and that crutch on it. But if we're being objective here, it's definitely not healthy for the game to have a roll distance that's so large, and I can pretty much avoid anything like without any drawback just by spamming it. So honestly, like you know, forget the noise. If you see like players say that it's fine, like it's really not. I'm gonna stand my ground on this, and I'm not gonna bulge, because I know for a fact that this needs to be addressed 110%. This is why it's #1 on my list of priority. Alright, now for the second one, the second nerf that I think should be addressed. Let's put back some armor. The second thing that I think should be addressed is, of course, power stance damage. So here we're talking about all power stance setup. Here I'm showing straight sword. You know how crazy the straight sword damage can get. Let's also show another one that you guys like. You know, that's another one. That damage is also ridiculous, which is why all power stance damage should be addressed. Let's look at another one that's also notable for the crazy damage it does. See here, you know, that right here, that's another one that's usually either a 1-shot or a 2-shot for this. You know, it's just like across the board, really. I've actually seen, you know, I don't have the build for each of these setups, but I've seen on the right build, like katanas like that, they can absolutely 2-shot, like actual 2-shot with just 2 jumping attacks, which is absolutely crazy. So really, when you look at the power stance damage, do I have spears as well? Let's just show spears just for the sake of it, because spears are also a big part of the problem as far as damage is concerned. You know, it's not necessarily like, I see a lot of people complaining about the speed in general of the spears and whatnot, but I don't think the speed is an issue. It's really because that attack, if that attack did a lot less damage, it would not be problematic, because you would just trade with it and win trades. But because this does like 700 plus damage, you know, you need to respect it, and you can't really ever trade with it. So that's why it's so oppressive. So the moment you nerf power stance damage, all these setups that look very strong, like spears like this, like Great Spear, when the damage, when you can trade with this attack right here, it's not an issue anymore. So that's why I always say don't nerf the speed, you're gonna kill the weapon class. Just nerf the damage, because we can all agree that the damage is too high on these setups. And what do they have in common? Well, they're all power stance setup. So this is #2 on my priority list. Nerfing the damage of all power stance weapons. So, you know, also we don't want to like take away the identity of the game either. So my suggestion for a damage nerf for all these setups would actually be around 20% damage reduction. That would be my suggestion for a damage decrease. You know, 20% might not seem like a lot, but 20% is really felt once you understand damage curve and the way like modifiers add on top of that, because there are defense buffs, there are you know, crab, you know, there's all sort of things that affect damage. So 20% is actually a very good amount. It's pretty high. All right, let's see here. After #3 on my list, this one is going to be widely regarded as a good change, I believe. I don't think this one is controversial at all. Let me grab a few weapons here real quick. Let's see here. Let me just put quick step on another one of these. There you go, quick step, and the last one. Let's put a raptors, right? Here you go. So the the trifecta of dodge Ash of Wars. You got Bloodhound Step, you got Quick Step, and you got Raptors. Now, some people confuse why the dodge Ash of Wars are so strong. They think it's the iframes. They think they need less iframe. But honestly, this is not. This has never really been the big issue for these Ash of War, except Bloodhound Step at the beginning of the game, which had like absolutely laughable amount of iframes. It was immortality pretty much. But right now, at the state the game is in, you know, we are at patch 1.08. The problem for these Ash of Wars is not it's not the invincibility. I mean, personally, I wouldn't really care if they nerf the iframes for these, but the main issue for these Ash of Wars is the recovery cancel after you do any animation. Let me explain. Any action that you perform has an animation, whether it's a roll with a roll animation, whether it's an attack. You know, before the animation completes, or like after the animation finishes, you can chain it into another action. So you can cancel the recovery by going into a roll, by going into sprinting, or by blocking. There's different ways to cancel the animation or cancel the recovery of the animation, but they don't have the same cancel window. So for instance, it's going to be slower to R1 or attack into a roll than attack into a dodge. So that's really where the main issue for these dodge Ash of Wars come from, is that you can attack and then you can cancel almost the entirety of your animation at the end of it, the recovery, by going into a dodge Ash of War. And this applies to all the dodge Ash of Wars, whether it's Quick Step, whether it's Bloodhound Step, whether it is Raptors, because Raptors is also part of the problem. Any Ash of Wars that does that prevents the player from ever really taking damage. So that's why it is so important. And when we say the recovery of animations, we're not even just talking about attacks. We're actually also talking about rolling into a dodge Ash of War. So if I was to spam roll twice, do roll like that, you know, there's a certain speed to it. But if I roll into Bloodhound Step, it actually cancels the roll animation faster than if I were to do a subsequent roll. So that's why it's a big deal. I think I mean, it's really an easy fix too. All they need to do is to prevent these 3 dodge Ash of Wars, or any dodge Ash of War that they add in the future, from ever canceling an animation. So they pretty much need to have no ability to cancel any animation, as opposed to like various other Ash of Wars that are attack based. So like for instance, it's fine to have like your weapon animation recovery like get cancelled by an Ash of War, like, you know, and that is offensive, because you know that you're still in a state where you can get hit. So if you cancel your attack or your dodge with an offensive Ash of War, that's not an issue. So we don't want to change that across the game. It's really only an issue for specifically the dodge Ash of Wars. So, you know, that sort of deal. And here I'm showing it with a rapier, obviously, but this really is true for every weapon across the board. So this is the third thing on my list that I could see that needs to change for the game to be better. To me, those 3 things are my top priority. This is the top 3 things that are most important for Elden Ring to be in a better place. Alright, and that's going to be it for today, guys. The whole list of changes to make Elden Ring perfect was about 2 hours of recording straight and talking for about 2 hours. So I'm going to divide this whole expose in various sections. I'm gonna make clips out of it so that you can get an idea of various changes that should be added to Elden Ring over a longer period of time so you have more time to digest it. But this was the first part. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll catch you guys up next time. Take care, guys.